George Harrison is often remembered as the calm presence in the Beatles, the quiet one, the spiritual one, the man who stood slightly behind Lennon and McCartney while the world screamed their names. But that image hides a far more complicated truth. Beneath the serenity was a man who carried deep wounds, shaped not only by fame, but by disappointment, neglect, and broken trust from the people closest to him. George's story begins far from glamour. He grew up in a small, cold house in Liverpool, where comfort was scarce, but imagination was not. Music became his escape early on. When he first heard Elvis Presley on the radio, it was as if the world cracked open. That sound suggested there was something beyond narrow streets and factory routines. A guitar soon followed, and with it hours of practice, sore fingers, and quiet determination. Meeting Paul McCartney on a school bus changed everything. Through Paul, George was introduced to John Lennon and eventually earned his place in the Quarrymen. He was younger, quieter, and less confident, but his talent was undeniable. When the Beatles formed, George was no longer just a kid from Liverpool. He was part of something historic. Yet even as the band rose to unimaginable heights, George often felt like he was standing in the shadows of two towering personalities. As the years passed, this imbalance became harder to ignore. George began writing stronger, more personal songs, but his ideas were frequently dismissed or minimized. John Lennon, once his hero, grew distant and cutting. George's spiritual interests were mocked. His creative growth was treated like an inconvenience. The dismissiveness wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was constant, and that made it hurt more. Paul McCartney, however, was the source of a different kind of pain. His perfectionism and control over the band's sound left George feeling micromanaged and unheard. Paul believed he was helping. George felt diminished. Over time, the tension hardened into resentment. The famous Let It Be sessions captured this quiet fracture, where George finally voiced what he had held back for years, the feeling that no one was truly listening. When the Beatles broke apart, the emotional distance didn't disappear. George found success on his own, proving he had always been more than the quiet Beatle. Still, the scars remained. He never fully repaired his relationship with Paul, and though he reconciled somewhat with John before Lennon's death, the lost years could never be recovered. In his final chapter, George faced illness with the same inward strength that had guided his life. Surrounded by family, prayer, and music, he let go peacefully. His passing revealed something many hadn't fully understood while he was alive. George Harrison was not quiet because he had nothing to say. He was quiet because he spent a lifetime learning how to endure. Today, his legacy feels clearer than ever. His songs speak of patience, pain, faith, and acceptance. They tell the story of a man who walked his own path, even when it hurt, and left behind music that continues to heal long after the noise has faded.